So, um, just a reminder that there are only 2 weeks left of lectures, and if you've not submitted 2 lecture prep questions, you have to basically submit them for the next two to get a full grade here. The last lecture is on December 6th. So 11/29 and December 6th are the last 2 opportunities. Follow me on social media. I did post an extra credit assignment about a week or two ago, and I only got 1 response, which is crazy, guys. So follow along. I'll definitely be doing at least 1 more before the end of the semester. A quick flash of
Professor,
schedule.
question.
Yes.
Where did you post about the extra credit thing? Where did you post it?
On Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I posted both in my stories and then on my profile.
Okay, thank you.
As you guys know, we have Sarah Green today, who joining us, who is founder and designer of the Braidreleaser and a developer at Adidas. Next week, Allison Mendoza is joining us. She's Associate Vice President of Design for Victoria's Secret Pink. And our final lecture, that is, Fashion Service Network will be joining us with a group of panelists, and more to come on who those panelists will be, hopefully by next class, but I'll definitely email you guys in advance of class as well. On 12/13 is the final due. It will be due, rather. You will have a week to complete it between 12/6 and 12/13. So, but you will not need to show up to class on the 13th. Please join me in welcoming Sarah to our classroom. She's the founder and CEO of the Braidreleaser, a new tool that keeps your hair from breaking when you take down your braids. Her deep passion for the beauty industry started as a makeup artist at MAC Cosmetics and is backed up by her engineering and development background at companies like Shimazeki and Adidas. Her design and engineering education began at FIT in New York City, where she holds a bachelor's degree in fashion design. She went on to earn her MBA from Willamette University and is currently a student at North Carolina State University in a Doctorate of Design program. She created the second generation Braidreleaser after being inspired by the original 1992 design by her mother, Angela Green. Sarah runs the company's operations and business development. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. There, I saw her join before.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
How
everyone.
are
Thank you for
you?
having me. I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well. I did warn the students that I am at FIT, as you can tell by my crazy background.
Yeah.
And my Wi-Fi is a little spotty. So if my camera goes in and out, it's to preserve at least my microphone working.
Awesome. No problem. No worries.
Thanks for being here. I would love to just kick off by hearing a little bit about your career path and how you got from FIT to where you are now.
Yes, it's such a long journey, and I will do my best to cut it short. Yeah, so at FIT, I mean, I was a student at FIT at a weird time. It was like 30 students to a class, like we were tight in there. And so it was just a crazy time for us. FIT really didn't have much funding. So when it came to like having mannequins, it would be like 2 to 3 students to a mannequin. Like it was just like
Wow.
a time. It was a crazy time. I was I was such a go-getter, so I would split my time with being in class and doing overnighters, doing my work, and then working retail because professors will always say, like, listen, guys, if you really want to know about the consumer, work retail. If you really want to understand what the consumer is about, what they think about, how they wear their clothes, type of fit they like, work retail. And so I had the
Totally agree.
opportunity to work. Yeah, it's like the mecca of like where you can understand exactly who you're designing for and how to storytell. Um, because I got an opportunity to work on the corporate side as well. So I got a better understanding of like, how do we tell stories to our consumer and how we're targeting them. And so working retail really helped me a bunch. And it was a good time. Like I was young, living in New York City, working retail, and I was like making $18 an hour at the time. So I was living my life.
That's great.
Yeah, so I focused on fashion design the first 2 years. And then in my bachelor's degree program, I fell into knitwear design. And I put emphasis on fell into knitwear design because I actually um, was in children's wear at the time. And so,
Oh,
and this is because I don't know if the system is still the same, but you have to like stay up all night to click on the class in the specialization that you want to work in. I don't know if that's still the same. It might have
I
changed,
don't know if
but
students is it? I'm not
um,
sure.
okay, well, back in the day, back in the day, all the students would stay up all night to pick out their specialization, and it's first come, first serve. So if you did not click on the class that you wanted, you would get kicked out,
Oh,
and you would be
wow.
automatically placed in a specialization that had space. So when I clicked into knitwear, I was kicked out because it was already full. And so I went to the dean at the time and I said, I have no passion for children's wear. This is not something I'm in love with. Can I please get into knitwear? And so I thankfully I got into knitwear design, which I am so grateful because that pretty much launched my career. I was pretty much a hustler in college. I was working for MAC Cosmetics and I was making like 25 an hour then, and that was like really good money. So just like doing styling, working for MAC, and just like doing whatever I can to fully immerse myself in fashion, like every aspect, because you need to become well rounded. You need to know what you're talking about when you're in these rooms. And so from there, I was pretty much just like working any job I could. And I happened to work a fashion week show for a Japanese knitwear brand, Kotoba, and Kotoba NYC. And so I did their fashion week show, and they said, "Hey, we are all FIT alumni, so would you be open to being a part of our knitwear brand?" And so I said, "Well, hey, yeah, why not?" And so they called it like assistant coordinator, but I was really like an assistant designer. We did all the sketches, we did all of the yarn, like we chose the yarns, we worked with the technicians, we did all the fittings. We even did all of the photo shoots ourselves. We funded it basically just with minimal money. Um, because Shimaseki, which is a knitting manufacturing company, they really didn't put too much money into the brand. And so we had to keep the wheels going, and we had to keep the excitement of the brand going. And so that really helped me learn how to create a brand from scratch and to build it up. And so from there, unfortunately, we weren't making enough money. Having a knitwear brand and really trying to design um, all year round, like how can how challenging ourselves on how do we design knitwear in the summer, how do we design knitwear in the spring, how do we design knitwear in the winter, fall, like, so it was a task that we took on, and I would say we did pretty well at, because we would try to figure out what yarns can function a different way, if they're lightweight, if they become felted after we wash them, to make it more of like a coat weight type fabric. Like we were really just trying to figure out any option, any way to sell our brand. And we did have it in a couple of boutiques, but the expectation was to make $1 million. And anyone in the fashion design industry as a startup brand to make $1 million in the first year is not impossible, but when you don't have the resources, um, it's difficult. So they brought the brand back to Japan. And so from there, I said, well, since Cultiva is gone, what do I do? And I was able to get promoted as a technician from there. So I got the opportunity to learn more about the machinery. And from that position, I traveled around the world and learned about whole garment knitting and US manufacturing, and learning the capabilities of the knitting machines. And that gave me insight on how clothes function and how knitting machines are built down to the nuts and bolts. And with this opportunity, I was able to do a short stint in Japan for a month, and I did that multiple times. But my first time, I got an opportunity to go to the factory, work with the technicians, learn their proprietary programming system, and do knit simulations and things like that. And so from that, um, I was Shimaseki was expanding their brand. And from there, they opened and I'm telling you, I'm cutting the story short. So many things happen in between, but from there, Shimaseki opened up a showroom in Los Angeles. From there, they had me traveling back and forth. Like I traveled 50% of the time in this role, which was amazing. For me to be so young and to go to all these places and just see something outside of New York City. And so I was traveling back and forth to LA, and we would have seminars, 3D knitting seminars. And from that, I got an opportunity to meet a footwear materials developer. And I learned about the brand. And I was a fan of Adidas, and it was a place, I mean, a brand that I wore. And so I was familiar about the but not the history too much. And so um, from there, I sparked a conversation with this woman, and we spent like an hour together, and not realizing that when she went back to Portland, Oregon, she was talking about me like, I know this girl, she knows about knit, she has this extensive experience, we need someone like her at the brand. And so, again, make a long story short, my former boss reached out to me through LinkedIn and said, "Hey, Leanne talked so many great things about you. I honestly just spent an hour." And the purpose of the story is that you need to know is that building relationships with people is very important without any intention. Um, Even if it's just having a short conversation, I did not realize having this conversation with Leanne would afford me an opportunity to live in Portland, Oregon at the age of 25 years old and to build this career and get a degree and work on getting another degree. So if you don't hear anything I said today, I would hope that you would learn or take back building relationships with people, and that could be people within your network, that could be people with outside your network, your professors as well. And so I said, hey, well, I'm going to take on this opportunity, I'm going to apply. And um, I was so in this New York City bubble because I said, well, I'm going to be a fashion designer in New York City, and that's going to be my life. And from that, it was like the universe was like, no, this is not the plan for you. You have to venture out. And it is, do not be stuck on where you are now. You can have an opportunity overseas. You can have an opportunity in California, Portland, wherever you want to be. It doesn't have to be New York City. Yes, New York City is the mecca of fashion design and fashion and all things fashion, right? But do not limit your do not limit your talent to one. And so I got the job, and I went through 4 interviews. So it's not easy. I tell the story in short, but it's not easy. I went through 4 interviews, and they flew me out to Portland, Oregon, and had an opportunity to meet my team. And from that, I managed the entire knitting center in North America. And so I
Wow.
was trained in China. I got an opportunity to go back to um, Japan. And so, with all that being said and done, I just landed now in Los Angeles because um, I was operating the knitting machinery and programming footwear and prototyping, and I had reached the ceiling. And so I said, okay, well, what's my next challenge? What's the level up for me? And so being a footwear developer was that next level for me. And so I worked as a footwear developer where I pretty much make sure that NBA, WNBA players, their shoes don't fall apart on the court. And so I work on Harden shoes, Candace Parker shoes, Donovan Mitchell,
Wow.
Damian Lillard. Like I work on their shoes, and so I pretty much we're pretty much the gatekeepers of product. If we don't approve it, it doesn't go out into the market. And so um, this experience has given me a better understanding of how shoes function, how they work together, how the components work together, also standards that go into basketball. And when you think about basketball, it's actually one of the most complex industries when you talk about footwear to go into, because when you think about running shoes, not as much reinforcements and not as much material goes into um, running shoes or trainer shoes because they're supposed to be lightweight, and most of the shoes are knitted. So compared to basketball shoes, you have so many different materials. You have leather materials, you have knitted materials, you have synthetics, you have so many components, you have foam in the interior of the shoes to protect the athlete. You have the inserts, you have the torsion bar that helps with the arch of the foot. So there's so many components that goes into basketball shoes. And if I were to pick a challenge, being in basketball and being a footwear developer is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
So I literally sped up my career, but that's pretty much like what it has been these several years from going to FIT to now.
Amazing. That was a really great path that you just took us through. Really,
Yeah,
really
it's like
fun. Um, I would. So you just got into it a little bit about your role as a developer, but can you assume we know nothing and take us back to the
yeah.
beginning of what you basically do on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so I manage, I would say over probably 100 plus shoes. And so I am one part of a triad. So the triad is development, design, and marketing. And so we work together to ensure that the product is looking the way that it needs to, and I make sure that it functions. So we'll go into a meeting and we'll say, well, this color needs to be this. Um, and then for sometimes the color might cause color migration where we basically say like color bleeding, but we call it color migration. So my job, and this is just a very tiny example because there's so many things that go into it, but if we have a color migration issue, I would go to the factory and say, hey, what materials can we use to minimize that color migration? Or if we change the color, what colors can we change it to? And so I solve the problems that comes with designing a shoe. And so it could be very complex to, for example, it could be um, a certain standard is failing or a certain shoe is failing. And so what type of material can I use to make sure that the shoe passes? Um, all the way down to size of a shoelace. If the shoelace breaks during a certain test, then we would have to choose or source a different type of shoelace. Um, if the tongue is too wide, how can we make the tongue slimmer to make it more comfortable to the basketball player? So things like that, like very all the way down to a graphic. If the graphic scale is too big, how do we scale it down? If the placement is wrong. So I figure out all that stuff. So it's a handoff. So the designer says, Sarah, this is my CAD. And so a great thing about me starting out as a designer is that I understand CADs, I understand color ups and things like that. And so when they hand me the CAD, I can dissect the CAD and say, okay, we need to change this, or this is not going to work. And the reason why I know that is from past experience of working on different types of shoes. Each shoe has its own thing and its own problem. And so we do have pattern engineers. When things get too complex, pattern engineers come in and we brainstorm on how to correct the shoe. Um, and that's pretty much like my job. I solve the problems and I make sure I I'm basically a project manager for all the shoes that I am taking care of. And that can be from a SMU. So we have three businesses that we focus on. So we focus on inline, and inline is mainly the shoes that go into like the Foot Lockers, the DSGs, and then we have SMU, which we call special markup. So SMUs are more like the exciting projects that are on social media, that goes on our athletes just for them. And most of it, sometimes SMUs do not go into retail. And then we have our promo business, which is more our partnership with basketball camps and schools, colleges. And so we make sure that the colleges that we are affiliated with are suited with their uniforms and their shoes the right way. And so that's pretty much what developers do. There are different levels to developers. And so there are developers who are sitting right next to the pattern engineer to make sure that, okay, this needs to be fixed, this is not working, and this is mainly based on factory feedback. And so these are more like senior level developers who are partnered with our pattern engineers. And so sometimes I get into that, but the workload is a lot. So you can imagine how much we are handling and dealing with a season. And with developers, we do not stop working. It's not a period where we can chill and there's like a downtime. There's always shoes coming. It's a revolving door. It doesn't stop. So right now I'm finishing up fall winter 22 at the moment.
Wow.
And working on SS 22. And then we're going to start working on um, spring summer 23. And so it's like it doesn't stop. It's not a time where we're just kind of chilling and saying, oh, I don't have anything to do, because um, the work doesn't stop and we really don't go on holiday. Obviously, we do take vacation, but production is continuous. The factories do stop for like Chinese New Year and things like that, but that is really the only time the factory is shut down, is when there are certain holidays. But I would say 95% of the time, the shoes are being produced um, um, all the time.
Yeah.
And so when we finish one shoe, another shoe comes in and it gets briefed, where the marketing manager tells the story about the meaning of the shoe, the meaning of the colors, the function of the shoe, and then the designer does their thing with the CAD, and then I'll take it. The factory makes sure that that it functions, passing all the standards. And then we receive a physical sample. So we call it a LKS, which is a look-see sample. And we come together as a triad to review the sample. From then, we make sure that design and marketing is happy. I pretty much work for marketing. I work for design. I make sure that they are happy with the shoe. And so once we look at a look-see sample, then we pre-activate, which lets the factory know that it's ready. We call it like sample ready. Once it's sample ready, they will create a confirmation sample. From that confirmation sample, that lets our doors know, like DSG and Foot Locker, that they can now open for orders. And so so I am end to end. Now, working on a shoe, I can work on a shoe for 12 months, or I can work on a shoe for 6 months. So it just depends on what shoe and what business it's for.
Okay. Wow, that's great. And
Yeah.
amidst all of this amazingness at Adidas, you also decided to launch your own company.
Yes.
Will you talk to us a little bit about that? And I mean, it sounds like you got the idea from your mother, if I'm reading your
Yes.
bio correctly. But and
Yes.
yeah, so how did you get the idea to resurrect it?
Yeah, so for my MBA, my professor was like, okay, what do you want to focus your thesis on? Do you want to focus on something in your organization, or do you want to focus on a passion project? And so I went back and forth, like, okay, what can I present to Adidas as a brand to improve? And then I wrote a list on those things, and and then I focused on, like, what am I passionate about? And I really couldn't figure out what I was passionate about at the time because I was just ready to graduate. It was a tough time going back to school after being out of school for so many years. And so I said,
Imagine.
well, I'm right. So in my mind, I said, well, I can create a business plan around my mother's braid releaser. And my mother have had the braid releaser in her safe for, I would say, 25 years. And so I spoke to my mom and I said, Mom, how would you feel if I create a business plan surrounding the braid releaser? And so she's like, okay, yeah, I think that's so exciting. I would love for you to do that. I want you to go and run with it. And from that, I I did a ton of research about the hair care market, if there is even a place for this tool, is there a need? Really doing research on market validation and consumer storytelling. How do I tell the story of the Brave Releaser? Is it important? Do people care? And also just trying to get a better understanding of, you know, how big is this market? And so when I did that research, I mean, the hair care market by 2025 is probably going to be $1 to $2 trillion, and this is mainly
Wow.
focused on Black hair care market. And so in my mind, I said, okay, let me figure out a way to again tell this story. Now that I see that there is a place for us in the market. Do I tell the story of my mom? Do I tell the story of how I started the company? Like, what is going to hit home for people? Because when you're starting a clothing line, when you're starting a hair care business, whatever accessory design, whatever you want, you have to really authentically figure out how you're going to tell the story, and who you're targeting. And that is something that I learned first thing at FIT. Like, who I'm designing and I'm creating this stuff, but who is it for? All the way down to their age, what they eat, what kind of music they listen to. Like, when you are serious about this, you really have to dig deep and get a true understanding of who the message is for. And once you got that down, selling your product is easy. And so from there, my mom's initial mission was to improve the mother daughter experience, because I didn't like when my mother did my hair. My mother wasn't a hairstylist, so when she would do my hair, I would get so frustrated. I would move around and I hated it, and I would cry. And so the Brave Releaser was a way for her to really help little girls and little boys enjoy the experience of getting their hair done by their parents. Not realizing that when we launched the product, it was in the middle of a pandemic, and the pandemic is obviously still happening. And but what I say to that is there are a lot of um, men and women who are learning how to do their hair on YouTube and
Oh yeah.
learning how to do their hair without their hairstylist. So this was the perfect time for us to pivot that story on making our consumers' lives easier, still targeting parents, but also targeting millennials who are um, really looking to social media on how they do their hair and what tools they use, because there hasn't been um, accessibility to hairstylists. And so I started this business, and we have done an enormous amount of work on really trying to figure out how we get our returning consumers and or customers. And so we're launching 4 additional products, which we're really excited about. And we've got noticed by Essence In Style magazine, which we're so grateful for. We've also got noticed by Target, and so we're just really trying to become well-rounded and also prepare ourselves for these retailers and for um, anyone who wants to hear our story, honestly. Um, and it's a 24-hour job. And I think sometimes we have like this dream of what we want our lives to be and how we want our clothing lines and our business to be, but you have to work at it every day. There's not a day that I'm like, okay, how can I get more exposure for the Braidreleaser? How can I get more exposure of me being an entrepreneur? And when I say that is, who can I connect with? Who can I ask questions? Always talk to people who are already in the industry. If you want to start a clothing line, try to reach out to designers who have successful brands. If you want to start an accessory brand, talk to accessory designers who are already out there. When I started out at Tommy Hilfiger, I was 14 years old, and so I got an opportunity to be so young and to be in a room of accessory designers who really cared about um, what goes into a bag. And that might sound silly, but what are they carrying? Um, is it a high quality product? Because materials also is in consideration. And so you can't miss anything. And that sounds a little harsh, but you cannot miss anything. Um, you have to find a way to figure out everything and ask questions, and don't be scared to ask for help. Um, Even with me having an MBA, I don't know half of the things I know from getting an MBA. I know because I've learned from business owners who have multi-million dollar businesses. And so, and I'm nowhere near close to that, but you also have to realize they have to take baby steps to get to that bigger picture. Um, and if you have found a way to accelerate that, great. But to have longevity and to be successful, you have to do things in a way that you don't want to accelerate too fast. And the reason why I say that is because we did have an e-commerce site. The e-commerce site that you're looking at, we did not have it when we were in style and when we were in essence. And the problem with that was when we got noticed by them, people were messaging us, when can we buy? And when can we buy? When can we buy? And so the excitement had died down. So when we officially launched our website, we weren't in style then. We weren't in essence then. So we had to figure out a way to build back that excitement. And so timing is everything. Timing is everything. Um, so yeah, I mean, we're still on this journey. We're still on this journey. And we've,
Great.
yeah, I mean, my mom is 72 years old. So half of the things that I'm doing, she doesn't know about, but when we get customer reviews on DMs and things like that, I'll screenshot them and show her. And at the end of the day, I'm doing this for my mom, and I think seeing her happiness and seeing her dreams come true, even if it's in the hands of one person. And I'm just thankful to say that they're in the hands of hundreds of people, and we're going to get to the thousands and millions of people. So that just really keeps me going, and that just lights that fire and keeps that fire fueled for me.
That's great. Awesome. Well, one thing you touched on in a couple of places now is just your secondary degrees that you hold. both the MBA, which you have in your possession, but and the doctorate of fashion design, which you're working on, and would just love to hear a little bit more about what made you decide to get these degrees and what you've gotten out of them.
Yeah. So I have like this overachieving attitude. Like I have to work. It's crazy because Adidas is one of the top brands in the world. And so working for Adidas for some reason wasn't enough for me. And it's not in a bad way, by all means. It has changed my life tremendously. Um, but what's interesting, and I don't like to say but what I will say to that is I wanted more and I had to figure out how I was going to get that. Um, and getting all these degrees is is I don't want to is the way. Like I don't want you to listen to my story and say that you got to get an MBA and you got to get a doctorate degree. Like no, like it depends on the person. It's a case by case. In my mind, when I wanted to get my business degree, I knew that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And with that, I could have took like a YouTube class or something like that, but I really wanted to get an understanding of like accounting. I wanted to get an understanding of what it is to be an entrepreneur. What does it mean? What does it mean to hire people? What does it mean to have difficult conversations with your employees? How do you handle those conversations? And so, um, and also what does it mean to be a leader, and so from that um, Adidas had the um, opportunity to partner with schools that they would pay a percentage of our tuition, and so it just made sense for me to uh, be in this program and really learn and get a better understanding of what it means to have a business and what it takes. I mean, when I did my thesis, I did not realize that I needed to do so much research on something that I knew about. And I say that because in my mind, I wear braids. I wear braids. I'm wearing braids now. So I knew that my thesis would be easy. It was the total opposite. It was difficult. I had to remove my bias and really go into my research with fresh eyes. And getting my degree helped me to do that because my professor shut down and said, no, you need to come into doing this research without feeling like you know everything because you are a part of that demographic. And so at any time when you are doing research on anything you're doing, remove those biases. Even if you're speaking to someone who look like you, even if you're speaking to someone who does not look like really um, do the work. And so I felt, and this is just the type of person I am, I like to be held accountable. If I'm in a setting where I'm being held accountable, I'll do the work. Um, when I'm not in that setting, I'm at home and I'm relaxing, reading a book. That's really it. Like if I'm not in an environment where my classmates are holding me, and I loved about that's what I loved about being in school because I was in a room with people who worked for Nike. I was in a room of people who worked for all like different brand, Columbia sportswear, um, just like a different. It was very diverse. Like our group is very diverse, and there were people who already were business owners. There were people in my class who already had master's degrees, and they were working on their second master's degree. So there was no room for excuses. Like I was in an environment where people held me accountable, and it didn't matter. I had a 9 to 5 because everybody had a 9 to 5. Um, and so me complaining or saying that I couldn't have a paper done because I was tired meant nothing in that room. And I like that type of environment because again, it lights that fire under me. So I was able to successfully finish and graduate. And so now I kind of use that same energy throughout work. I hold myself accountable at work. If I need to approve a shoe, if I need to review a shoe, I make sure I slot out time to do that because I'm in a room full of people who know if I do not approve the shoe or review it on time, it's late and it doesn't get to its stores on time. So when you have that type of pressure, um, and when you're working in that type of environment, you have to do the job. And so I guess to say that I like being in places where I like pressure. Like it really kind of, and it's not bad pressure, it's good pressure. Um, and then working on my doctorate, it brings me back to design and knit. And so I love footwear development. I love it. But I will say that it's not a passion of mine. Design is. And so getting my doctorate at NC State is allowing me to work on focusing on knitted materials that can help either accelerate or prevent injuries um, in
How long is it
female
going to
track
take?
athletes. Yeah, so I probably won't graduate until 2025, 2026.
Wow.
Like depending on sponsor, advisors, and things like that. So
Are
I
there
finished
many
my
programs like throughout the country? Because I honestly, I don't know if I've ever met anyone with a PhD in design, which is pretty awesome. So
yeah, so you know what's interesting? I don't know of too many doctorate of design programs, and I think the reason why I focused on NC State because I always wanted to go to NC State. I actually wanted to get my master's at NC State because it has one of the best textile programs in the country, and so I was like, I need to be affiliated with NC State. I don't know how, and the doctorate design program just came up, and um,
amazing.
I yeah, so it was like the perfect timing for me to work on a passion project. And so yeah, I'm working on knits, and I'm
And you're
specifically
doing it
focusing.
remotely, or do you go there?
So my first year before the pandemic, we did go on campus and we had immersion week. So it's on campus and then you are working remote. So it's both. So because of the pandemic, right now it's remote and hopefully we'll be able to go back on campus soon. And so I would pretty much be working from from Raleigh, and still doing my Adidas work.
Wow,
And so,
that's
yeah,
a lot.
so it's a lot, right? It is a lot,
Impressive.
but it's worth it. It's worth it because again, I just have this passion for design, and this is my opportunity to do it. And Adidas, and I'm switching from Adidas to Adidas. In Germany, you say Adidas, and in the US, you say Adidas. So if you hear me switching over, just wanted to let you know. But yeah, I mean that this gave me the opportunity to focus on my passion project because I was a track athlete, so that's why I'm focusing on female track athletes for my dissertation. And so um, I I mean it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but
Yeah.
I have been able to manage the time well. I'm not a full-time student, so that's why it's taking me longer to get this degree. But I'm taking two classes a semester on top of working my full-time job
Wow.
and
A lot.
managing my business. So yeah,
So when do you sleep?
I make time to sleep, but what I will say, on in all seriousness, it's like if you want to make, especially now, if you want to make it in this world, you have to work hard and you have to know multiple things. You have to be well-rounded because there there is, I mean, the market is saturated with designers. That's just the reality. The market was saturated with designers when I was in FIT. I was in FIT 2007. And so fast forward to 2021, I could only imagine how saturated the market is now. So you have to be able to speak to different things, not only design. You need to speak to how do you market your product. You need to speak to financials, and that's something that I'm learning now. You need to speak to how you're doing your research, where you getting your research from. Like, stay away from Google. Please go back to books. Go to your library. Uh, I I know Google is a thing, and I sometimes I just quickly Google search something, but really just go back to your history on design and history of, whatever you're trying to learn. Just try to really step into a library if you can, because that really helps you get a well-rounded understanding of what you're designing for, and what you're telling your story, and how you're telling your story, or how you're creating product overall. And if you could speak to that, that helps you stand out. If you do things the normal regular way, people are not going to notice you because of just how the world is now. You can become famous on Instagram instantly, but because I'm older, my mentality is when Instagram goes away, what helps you stand out? I don't rely on Instagram to make my business big. I don't. A lot of our customers is word of mouth. It's not really from Instagram. It's people who have used our products and told someone else. And you want to organically grow your consumer base that way. You don't want to slap uh, a celebrity on there just because, you really want people to see your work for who you are, and not for a celebrity or a TikTok. And I know that's the big thing now, but really dig deep. And when people see your work, you don't have to explain. People already know. And that's how you want to, like, set yourself apart from everyone else.
That's great. Um, you have mentioned traveling overseas to both Japan and China. I feel like just casually in our conversation so far, but wondering if there's a favorite place you've been, or just a really cool experience you want to share with us from your travels.
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, Japan is amazing. Like, if you ever get a chance to go to Japan, go to Kyoto, or Wakayama, which is more the countryside, a little more quiet. I mean, Tokyo is basically like the New York City of Japan, but the technology is like 20 years ahead. Um,
Wow.
but or Shanghai is also amazing too. I'm trying to figure. I mean, Dubai was fun. Well, Milan was nice. I'm trying to figure out an experience. Okay, so when I went to China, we went to a restaurant, and there was different types of fish, like there were fish that were the size of me, like huge, like
Wow.
it was just crazy. And so we would go into the restaurant, and the restaurant is beautiful. The tile, the crystal, I mean, like, just the glass, like, gorgeous. Like, I mean, whatever you might hear about China, or it's no, it's a beautiful place. The people, the culture, like, it's just amazing. And so they asked me, they said, Sarah, pick a fish. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know what the name of these fishes are. Like, I don't know. And so you pick a fish, and they cook it right there. Like, it's like, it's you pick it, and then they cook it for you, and the way they prepare it, and it
Wow.
was just like an amazing, very like, attention to detail on, like, how your plates are placed, like your your silverware, like, it's just very, I mean, it was an amazing experience. But what I will say on the work side, being in the factories, I mean, we we uphold a serious standard when it comes to our factories, either that being overseas or in the U.S. And just the technical skill, um, the people that I met in those factories, I mean, smart as a whip. Like, I was sitting there just soaking up so much information and just so much technical information that I was just like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. Like, I need to learn so much more. I need to stay in China so much longer. Like, and so I just think, I mean, going to these places, it just exposed you to just different ways of thinking and different ways of um, speaking to people, and how you greet people and certain things you say. Even Japan, like how you greet people and just things that you wear, and the freshness of the food. I mean, it the style. I mean, there were so many experiences. I went to Kyoto and wore I wore kimono or kimono. And what was so important about that experience is that um, I actually was fitted by an elder woman, and so she was. So that's like I believe that's like the tradition. You have to get fitted in a kimono by an older woman, and so just having that experience of just being wrapped and just being, I don't know, just having that moment was just so spiritual for me. Um, and I'm not saying this in like a culture vulture way by all any means, because any place that I have gone, I always read up on just making sure that I'm respectful everywhere, either if I'm in China, Dubai, Japan, Milan, anywhere I've been. I always make sure to read up on, like, do I say this? Do I greet a certain way? But just how special for me to be in the room with an elder and for her to put my kimono on. That was just such a powerful moment for me. And so I would say that that was
Right.
definitely special. That was definitely
Yeah,
special.
that's great. Um, do you feel like there's anything you would have done differently with your time at FIT, if knowing the path that you ended up taking?
Yes. Um, I really wish that took I took my role as a student more seriously. Um, I think because I was 18 years old living in New York City, I wanted to have fun. Like I probably didn't take school seriously until my bachelor's degree. Like my last 2 years, or well, I stayed in school an extra year because I honestly I wasn't ready to go out into the job market. So I stayed at FIT an extra year. So I was in FIT for 5 years. And so I would say the last 3 years of my time at FIT, I took very seriously. But my first 2 years, I was living my best life. I was getting my work done, but I knew that I knew that my work could have been better. I knew that my designs could have been better. I knew my attention to detail could have been better. And so that's just, I don't want to say regret, but that's one thing that I wish I did better, because that would have honestly just really helped me as a student, but also as a designer, because I would halfway do my research. Like I wouldn't do the research the way that I needed to. And when professors would ask me questions about, why did you choose this fabric? I just would say I thought it was pretty, and that's not the right answer, like it, the feel of it, the weight of it, was the function of it. And now I know that. And so that's just one thing for anyone who's a freshman, or whatever year you're in at FIT, please take it seriously, because it's going to create a pathway on on of your success. If you don't take school seriously, then how do you expect to take a job seriously? And if not a job, if you want to start your own line, how are you going to take that seriously? If something as starting school and getting your assignments done on time, if you don't take that seriously, then you're not going to be successful.
That's great. Thank you. Um, what what piece of advice would you give students who want to launch their own business?
I would say ask as many questions as possible and find a mentor as soon as possible. Before you start anything, find a mentor. who has a business, and not, and I would say find someone who has like a six-figure and up business. Find someone who has been in the business 5 years plus, because this will help you really minimize the amount of mistakes you will make as a first-time business owner. So really identify who that mentor is going to be. Once you find that mentor, say, hey, this is what I want to start and this is my plan. Always have a plan. Like, create milestones for yourself. Like, the first year, we want to have a website. In 6 months, we want to launch the product. We're going to have a launch party, or we're going to start a social media, or we're going to build a fan base first. So just really, before you do anything, identify someone that who's been in your industry specifically. Is it either an accessory designer, fashion designer, a hair care stylist, whatever? Find that person and then have them walk with you through each process and each step. Um, what I will say with finding a mentor, always, it's not a one-way street. Figure out how you can help them as well. Because when you are asking a mentor for help, they want to also, in their own mind, well, how can you be an asset to me? You know, they want to pour into you, but how can you pour into them as well? And so figuring out if there's something that you're talented in that they need help in. So I that like
Great advice.
that is like key, key. Don't just ask when someone help me, and they're like, well, do you know anything about my business? Do you know where I need help, and how can you help me as well? So that it can be a mutual relationship and bond. Because when you have something solid, a strong foundation like that, your business will take off with no problem.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, I have about a billion more questions, but I know that the students have a lot too. So I want to I want to give
Yeah.
them a chance to ask them. Students, please raise your hand if you have a question, and please turn on your camera before you speak. Sophia, let's start with you.
Hi. First of all, I
Hi, Sophia.
found your lecture to be super helpful today, so thank you so much for your insight. I just
Thank you.
wanted to ask, you're clearly a master of multitasking. And as someone who struggles with that, what is the most helpful tip you could give to applying equal effort to so many different things in your career?
Well, that's a great question, Sophia. Honestly, you have to care about it. You have to have a passion for it. If you do not care about it, then don't waste your time. Don't do it. I'm gonna say that right now. If you're doing multiple things just to do multiple things with no intention behind it, no passion behind it, don't do it at all. And that's just the reality. The reason why I'm able to do these things, and then not many things, literally three things that I'm doing. That's it. I care about those three things a lot. And so I make sure that I make time for it. And even if you have to get a planner, if you have to put it on your calendar alert that says, hey, spend 10 minutes on this, spend an hour on this. Like, with, especially in my doctorate degree, my advisor tells me, hey, just do a quick little research about this. You don't have to spend your whole Saturday. Just do it, even if it's like during the work week, if you, after work at 6 o'clock, if you want to just research something really quickly, that's a small win. That builds up to the bigger picture. And so it's honestly a two-part answer, like, care about it, but also, if you have to set up reminders for yourself, anything that's going to alert you on what you need to do, then do that.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Roxanne, I see you next.
Hi, sorry. I had a question was, how has your background in the beauty and fashion industry helped you with the business that you have today? And like what specific components do?
Yeah, so when you're working at Mac, they are very strict on paying attention to detail. Like, because when your client walks away from you, when they're taking pictures, when they're um, going out partying, sweating, or whatever, you have to make sure that before they leave your seat, that you take care of all of that. You need to make sure that they don't sweat. You need to make sure that their eyeliner doesn't bleed. You need to make sure that their eyeshadow don't crease. All these things. And it's the same thing with your clothes or whatever, area that you in. You have to really focus like, is the zipper stitched the right way? If someone's dancing, is the zipper gonna bust? Like that is all connected. Like when I'm working on someone's face, and sometimes I do makeup, like just to kind of like help a friend out or do something quickly, like I am zoned in, like, okay, and I look at every angle. I put on different lights just to see what would their face look like outside, what would their face look like on the camera. Like that's what you have to do in anything that you have to do. It's all tied together. Paying attention to detail, and I said this already, but it's the honest truth. Like when you're making and designing something, you have to consider everything. If someone is rocking one of your handbags, you need to make sure that if they're swinging it and up in the air, doing something like that, that their handles don't fall off. That sounds kind of silly, but it's the truth. Or if, for example, if they're walking alone at night and someone is trying to take their bag, you know, is the bag going to fall apart or is it going to be a struggle? Like this sounds crazy, but you have to consider everything. If my client is going to jump in a pool and that's the photo shoot, I need to make sure that I'm using waterproof product. Or if it rains, who knows, right? Like you have to consider every condition, every factor that will pop up into your head that is going to reassure you that you're completing your design or your project the right way. And so, and it's simply that. Like when I when I think about makeup and when I think about how, when I'm thinking about the look, like what is the story that we're telling? If it's a glam look, am I doing a smoky eye with a red lip? Am I? Or am I going to do glitter? If I do glitter, when she blinks or when he blinks, is it going to fall? Like, am I using the right products? Like, am I using the right color for the skin tone? A flash comes, are they going to look like Casper? Like you have to consider everything with any, like, detail is key. Like I said, I consider the craziest things. Like when we work on our shoes and color migration comes up, and we call it like the test is called hydrolysis. When they do the hydrolysis test, when we sit down and we say, hey guys, it failed the hydrolysis test. The standard is 4. It needs to be at 5. And so we say, well, are we going to pass the shoe? Is someone going to be swimming in the shoe? Is someone actually going to run in the rain in this shoe if it's a suede basketball shoe? If it's a suede basketball shoe, we're probably just going to pass it because we're like, okay, we know what this shoe looks like. We know what type of consumer who's going to buy it. Do you think they're going to go out there in the rain and wear it? So if the hydrolysis is a 4, we're going to pass it even though it needs to be a 5, if that makes sense. So that's honestly how I named from makeup detail to clothing to hand accessories to footwear. So they all tie in together. You think similarly. It's just the situations are different.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
James, I see you next.
Yeah, I'm just curious how you feel like your development role at Adidas has changed the way you view the design process.
I respect design. Thank you, James, for that question. I respect designers so much. I and designers respect me because it's I think as a designer sometimes we're like, just do it and figure it out, right? But there's so much more that goes into just doing it and figuring out. uh, we really be intentional on how we develop shoes, and designers understand that because they sit right along with us as a triad. So it's really about understanding the level of technical difficulty and really having that respect for each other, because we can't, like I said, we can't just do it and then make it work. And sometimes we do fast track shoes where we just do it and make it work. But um, it for me to have the ability to speak the technical language and design language, I have respect for everyone involved in the triad and even the marketing team, really how they tell their stories and how they target the consumer and why they're targeting the consumer. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that goes into it. So really just being intentional and not just designing something just to design something, but I'm 5'8", 140 pounds, and I'm developing shoes for women who are 6 feet, 200 plus. Okay. So how I feel about the shoes that I develop that fit me compared to who I'm developing for, I'm like, oh shoot, like this is serious. So James, like honestly, I just have a respect, even before I was a developer, I just have a respect for how developers work and how they do it and how important their job is. Designers are equally important. It's just that developers, whoo, it's a grind. It's definitely a grind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Young then.
Okay. Okay, so how important are partnerships and brand collaborations when growing and promoting your product?
It's extremely important. Um, it's like it's like a song. You need to make sure the beat, the verses, the tone, everything is working in unison. If you're if like for example, if my social media team is doing something totally different from what I asked for, or if my factory is creating different color braid releases without me knowing, like it's going to be a shit show. Excuse my language. Okay. It's going to be a shit show. And so you have to make sure that everyone is working together and everyone's aligned. Because if your team is not aligned, then it's not going to work. And your consumer is going to see that. They're going to know that your team is not aligned. They're going to know by how your product looks, how your product is designed, and the messaging. If so, for example, right now, our for Adidas, the messaging is impossible is nothing. If we're saying impossible is nothing, and then, for example, if a shoe says nothing is impossible because someone's weren't talking to each other, it's bad, right? Because the consumer is going to say, well, you said impossible is nothing, but you have a shoe that says nothing is impossible. Like, which one is it, right? So it's so important. Or it's like a car, right? Like if everything in the car is not working together, the wheels are not turning the right way, and if the engine is not working, and if you don't have gas in the car, right? It's not going to work. So it's extremely important, like top priority, top priority.
Thanks. Lucy, I see you next.
Hi, I wanted to ask, has it been difficult for you to maintain balance between owning your own brand while working under a large brand, and which one do you prefer more, if you have a preference?
Yeah, it's been difficult. It's been difficult. It's difficult because of just where you split your time. It's but what I will say is that I love working for a larger brand because it helps me to understand what I need to do to accelerate my brand and how to make it a large conglomerate. Like I don't want my brand to become the next Adidas because it is two different areas and markets. But I like working both equally because I learn from what Adidas is doing and I apply that to my smaller brand. I love being a small business owner, and but I have the privilege to learn from the big guys, and I have a privilege to learn on how to create a strong foundation. Having board of directors, I didn't think having a board of directors was so important for a small business, but it is. And so right now I'm triggered for trying to figure out, well, how am I going to create my small board? And so I like working for it equally. But sometimes with larger brands, it's a lot of moving parts. With smaller brands, you have more control. With larger brands, you have more people involved, which means, the communication can sometimes get a little mixed up, and um, sometimes things um, can get very complex. And so with decision making and things like that, and so with being a small business owner, I don't have so many people in my business where I have to go through hoops to make decisions. And so with Adidas, when we make a decision, it has to go to Germany, and then Germany makes a decision, and then it gets back to North America, and then North America makes a decision. And then by the time we do all that, sometimes it's a little too late. And so um, it's balance. It's balance. I like working both because I'm learning. I'm learning from both experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Sonia, your question?
Hi.
And Sarah, let me know if you have a hard stop at all. I know we have a lot of questions
Okay,
rolling
yeah,
in.
I'll keep you posted. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, so I have two questions. My first question is, what advice would you give a Black woman trying to make it and be successful in the fashion industry, given all the extra obstacles that we have?
That is a very good question. Um, yeah, it's difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It's hard. When it comes down to getting funding, it's difficult. When it comes down to speaking to investors, it's difficult. I think the funding percentage for Black female business owners is like 0.025%. And so a lot of times you have to bootstrap. A lot of times you have to fund things yourself. A lot of times you have to be a little aggressive on your messaging and um, how bad do you want it at the end of the day? And it's unfortunate that I'm saying it like that, but as a Black woman, I have to fight for everything. Either that be a promotion, either that be um, getting getting capital for my business, either that be really standing firm on what type of topic I want to do for my dissertation. So I honestly, you have to keep going and you can't stop. You can't let outside prevent you and stop you from doing what you need to do. um it it's a tough journey, and I don't know how else to say it, but I'm honestly going to say that tap into your community of Black women entrepreneurs. If I didn't have a community of women who also struggled the way that I did and now are well off, I wouldn't be able to survive. And that's just the reality. If I didn't have women who look like me to say, Sarah, keep going, it's okay. This is a part of the process. I would have been stopped everything. I would have dropped out of school. I would have stopped my business, and I would have been okay with just working as a footwear developer. So, but that hunger is different. The hunger is different, and you have to just strive and you have to work hard and you have to bust your ass because a lot of times when you walk in these rooms of investors and when you walk in certain rooms, they don't take you seriously. So you need to know your shit. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to know your numbers. You need to know your consumer. You need to know your market. You have to know these things, or people unfortunately are not going to think you're serious. And what's interesting about that is that Black women are the fastest growing entrepreneurs in the US right now. So, and with that being said, is that we're coming to a point where we're like, you know what? I want more for myself. And when you have women and men, and I would say specifically women who are go get and getting it, and you see that and who are right there with you, that will keep that fire burning inside because it's not easy. Everything I told you from now, if I really told you my story and my journey, we'd probably be here for 24 hours straight, if not 48 hours, because I had I had to go through a lot to get here. Going through 4 interviews is kind of unnecessary, you know? But the reality is they wanted to make sure I knew my stuff when sometimes people just go for 1 interview and get the job, you know what I'm saying? Um, I mean, when I graduated from FIT, in my mind, I said I graduated for the number one school in the country, if not in the world, I believe now. I I I think that I should get a job. I've sat in rooms where, I mean, I've sat in rooms where they're like, they look through my portfolio and they're like, okay, bye, thank you. You know, or I've had people have me in waiting rooms for 45 minutes past my interview time because I didn't look a certain way. So, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for that. You can't let it upset you. You have to use that anger to keep you going because that's just what happens, you know. Um, Imagine, you know, my name is Sarah Green, right? So Sarah Green comes into a room of Teen Vogue, which was an experience I had. You know, I have this excitement because my portfolio, my resume is great and this and that and the other. And I walk into the room and I get turned away. And and I cried and I was so angry, but I had to say, just because I got turned away at Teen Vogue doesn't mean that one day I won't be in Essence. And my business was in Essence and my business was in Style. And In Style is a magazine that doesn't always necessarily target Black women, right? So it just because you get turned down one place doesn't mean that there's not an open door for you in another place. So you have to keep going. It's hard, but it's 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 just what it is. It's what it is.
Thank you. I know the feeling. That's really great advice, though, to like channel the anger because, sometimes you just want to quit. You want to quit, right? But you got to keep.
I want you got to keep going. I wanted to quit 20,000 times. I'm telling you, I wanted to quit 30,000 times, but it's a part of it. But you have to keep going.
Okay, and then my second question is like, what specifically about the braid releaser, like the design of the braid releaser, makes it faster than the comb? And how are you convincing people to switch over? Because the comb is cheaper and everybody uses a rat tail comb. So how are you convincing people? What's the strategy?
hmm So we really focused on our consumer, and we focused on what are our pain points, right? So with a comb, so the Brave Release has an ergonomic handle, and the reason why we have an ergonomic handle because when using a comb, you have strain in your wrist, strain in your hands are cramping up, and it breaks most of the time. So it's in our mind, we're like, okay, if you want to keep purchasing $3 rat tail tooth combs by the time you get to the 10th one, you already spent the amount that you could have just got in the braid releaser. On top of designing it with an ergonomic handle, it's double sided. So if you have micro braids, you can use it. If you have jumbo braids, you can use it. If you have medium sized braids, you can use it. So it has it's, I guess you can say, like multifunctional in that way. So with a rat tail tooth comb, you don't have that. And again, the teeth is also ripping through your hair. The exterior of the braid releaser is smooth so that it easily glides through the hair without breaking the hair. And so again, with the rat tail tooth comb, it has those tiny little teeth, which is damaging and shredding your hair as you're taking out your hair, which defeats the purpose of having a protective hairstyle. So we really just jot down to our customers like, if you want to continue using a rat tail tooth comb, this is what's going to happen. if you use our braid releaser, this is the benefit of using it. So we really drive home like and put emphasis on the benefits of using the braid release compared to using a rat tail tooth comb.
That makes sense. So, are you marketing mostly to people who do their hair at home or salons?
Yeah, so we're marketing to both. And the reason why we're marketing to both because people tend to change their tools, their hair tools and their hair products based on what their stylists tell them. So if we could target the stylist, then that gives us the open door to sell more product. And so yes, again, we are selling to individuals who are doing their hair and taking out their hair at home, but I would say that key person is the stylist.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. It was great like having your talk. You're really amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Ava, I see you next.
Hi.
Hello, Ava. What's your question?
Hi. So my question is, do you plan on only focusing on your product, the braid releaser, or do you want your brand to expand? And if so, do you want to create more beauty products or maybe fashion? Or yeah, I was just wondering if you have a plan for that.
Yeah, so we developed four additional products for the braid releaser. We developed a braid gel, a detangler, a scalp rinse, and I'm missing, oh, and a scalp oil. So we have those in development right now, which we're really excited about. This is really a great question, Ava, because I the Brave Release is my mother's passion project. This is something for my mom. And so when I think about the root of my passion and my calling is definitely being a fashion designer. And so after the Brave Release is taken care of and it's running itself, I will start my clothing line for sure.
That's great. Thank you.
You'll have to make sure to tell me when you
Thanks for
do.
the question. Yes, thanks for the question. That's a good one.
I think our last question is from Daisy.
Mhm.
Yes, I have a question. So, I really want to learn about business. So, what do you recommend? Do you recommend like taking courses at school, or should I just learn straight from YouTube or like online courses?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say try to see if you can do a little bit of both. I would say take some courses if you could take like an online course or maybe do like a accelerator for um, first time business owners. I think that would be great. YouTube sometimes it gets a little muddy because you get so many different um, the advice that you get is just so different and so diverse that sometimes it can overwhelm you. So to prevent from being overwhelmed, kind of put yourself in more of a controlled environment like a class where you can learn certain things and then if you want to dip and dab into YouTube you can, but if you want to know like the steps and learn more about the experience from a business owner, I would say like a accelerator, incubator of some sort for first time business owners, or and it could be like one class. It don't have to be like a full on 5 course class. Taking one class is a step in the right direction.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daisy.
Saraa, thank you so very much for coming on. This was absolutely wonderful and a really, really different conversation that we've had all semester, very different turn point. So we really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck both at Adidas and with the
Thank
Braid
you.
Releaser and whatever's coming next. And hopefully you'll keep in touch and let us know whenever you make a next move.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Any of you all can reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or anything that you might have forgot, I'm very open. Just reach out to me and just kind of let me know where you came from so I can know to accept. I have 50 people in my LinkedIn waiting for me to accept them. I have no idea who they are. So if you send me a little message like, "Hey, I was in Caroline's class," that would be great. That would be helpful for me to answer any questions you have.
That's so generous of you. Thank you. And Daisy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, to reach out to you, do you prefer LinkedIn or like your business email, personal email?
Yeah, so I would say reach out to me in LinkedIn, because with the Braidreleaser, I'm usually just answering about orders or tracking and things like that. But LinkedIn, I'm more attentive on like if you have questions about like anything we talked about today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you.
Sarah. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you and happy holidays.
You too. Hey, students, I just have one quick announcement for you guys. I wanted to say, our speaker from a couple weeks back, Lauren Baglore. I'm saying that wrong right now because my tongue is all twisted. She actually is looking to hire an intern for the first week of December, and she really needs to move fast on this. So if you think you may have some extra availability that week, shoot me a note. I do not know specifics on the timing, but it is going to involve a little bit of manual labor, I believe, because she's doing an inventory. But she also needs someone who's really has a great work ethic and is really savvy on the computer and can help her in general. And it's the type of thing that could turn into something more long-term if she finds a rock star. So she's looking to pay around $15 an hour. So it is paid, and would be some good experience if you're looking for some. So if you are interested, please send me your resume and send it as soon as possible, as I already do have a couple of resumes from other places, and she needs them as soon as possible. So thank you, and have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. If you asked a question today for lecture prep questions, please be sure to email me your response as soon as possible after class today. And I will see you guys next week for Allison Mendoza. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Professor.